Let me tell you something, sweetheart. After I turned 60, I stopped packing my little handbag, popping in for tea, and doing the whole social rounds. And honestly, I haven't looked back once. In fact, today I'm going to share with you 6 brutally honest reasons why I stopped visiting people entirely and why I actually feel more peaceful, more energized, and yes, more loved than ever before. So stick around. Especially for reason number 6, it might just make you rethink everything about your social life after 60. And before we dive in, give this video a like, hit subscribe, and comment below. Do you visit people more or less these days, and why? I'd love to hear your story too. 1. I was always the one doing the traveling, and it got old. For years, no, decades, I was the one who packed up the casserole, slipped on a pair of decent shoes, and drove across town for every birthday, barbecue, and baby shower. It didn't matter how far, how busy I was, or how tired I felt. If someone invited me, I went. That's what good friends and good family did, right? But slowly, I began to notice something. It was always me doing the traveling. I was always the one knocking on other people's doors. My driveway was quiet. My kettle never boiled. For a visitor, nobody ever said, "Hey, I'll come to you this time." And it wasn't because they were too busy. It's because they'd gotten used to me doing all the legwork, emotionally and physically. I remember one Sunday in particular. I had a sore back and barely slept the night before, but I still got up, baked a cake, and drove 45 minutes to a family gathering. I smiled through the whole thing while people barely noticed I was there. On the way home, stuck in traffic with a headache, I thought, why am I doing this to myself? That was the turning point. At 60, I finally gave myself permission to stop. If people missed me, they knew where I lived. If they didn't, well, I learned to be okay with that too. 2. Most visits were surface-level chit-chat anyway. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a good laugh, a funny story, or a bit of juicy news. But after a while, I realized something painful. Most of the visits I was going on were completely empty. You know the kind I mean. You show up, you sit down, and you smile politely while someone rattles off gossip about their coworker's cousin or complains about things they never intend to change. The TV's on in the background, someone's scrolling on their phone, and nobody's really there. I started to feel like a background prop in other people's lives. No one was asking me how I was doing. No one cared to hear about my passions, my worries, or my triumphs, unless they were dramatic enough to gossip about. It was all just noise. And honey, at 60 plus, I just don't have the energy to pretend I'm interested in conversations that go nowhere. These days, I treasure silence more than small talk. I'd rather spend an hour on my porch with a cup of tea and the birds chirping than 2 hours listening to someone complain about their husband for the 10th time without actually wanting advice. I want depth. I want laughter that makes you cry. I want to talk about dreams, regrets, favorite books, the meaning of life, or why chocolate tastes better when you eat it after midnight. If I can't have that, I'd rather stay home. 3. I got tired of being the therapist in the room. Oh, this one's tender. And it might sting a little if you've been in my shoes. You see, I have always been a good listener. Always. People used to say, "You're so easy to talk to," or "You give the best advice." And I wore that like a badge of honor. But over time, I started to notice something disturbing. I wasn't being included in people's lives. I was being used as an emotional dump. People would invite me over just to unload all their stress, drama, and pain. I was the sponge, the fixer, the free therapist. I'd sit there and listen to them go on and on about their cheating boyfriend, their lazy kids, their job they hated. And then I'd offer gentle advice, a kind word, a hug. But when I needed someone, crickets, not one return call. Not one follow-up text. Not one person who asked, "Are you okay?" And I realized I was being drained. There's something sacred about emotional energy in your 60s. You don't have the same reserves you once did. And the older you get, the more protective you must be with your time and heart. So now I draw a firm line. I'm no longer the unpaid therapist. If someone wants to visit, it better be a two-way street where we both feel lighter after. Because I'm done carrying what's not mine. For some people only wanted me around when they needed something. I wish I'd seen this one earlier, but maybe you have to live a little before you notice who's genuinely in your life and who's just using your kindness like a convenience. For years, I thought I had a big circle. So many people reached out to me. But looking back, I now realize that most of those calls and visits came with a hidden price tag. Can you drop this off for me? Would you mind babysitting the kids just this once? My car broke down. Can I borrow yours? Oh, I know you love baking. Could you make that lovely banana bread again for the party? And I said yes. Every single time. Not because I was a pushover, but because I cared. Because that's how I was raised. To help, to show up, to give. But you know what happens when you start saying no? When you politely decline or say you're not up for a visit, they stop calling. That's when the penny drops. They weren't visiting me. They were visiting what I could do for them. I was a service, not a soul. And you know what? That realization hurt. It really did. But in that heartbreak, there was a lesson, and eventually a kind of freedom. I began to let go of the idea that I needed to be constantly available to be loved. Now, I keep my circle small. If someone reaches out just to check in, if they ask how I'm really doing without needing anything, they've earned a seat at my table. The rest, I send them love from afar and move on. 5. I realized home is where I feel most myself. This one crept up on me slowly, like a sunrise. For most of my life, I felt a kind of pressure to be on whenever I was around others. A little more put together, a little more polite, a little less me. But at home, I'm not performing. I'm not adjusting myself to fit into anyone else's expectations. I can wear my softest, oldest cardigan that looks like a mop but feels like heaven. I can play my records from the 70s, sip my tea out of a chipped mug, and sing out loud to Fleetwood Mac like no one's listening, because no one is. I can talk to my dog, or my plants, or God. I can cry without needing to explain myself. I can nap in the middle of the day with no guilt and eat breakfast food for dinner just because it sounds good. And here's the thing, I've never felt more me than I do now, in the quiet in my space. Visiting people used to drain me because I was always trying to be the right version of myself for whoever I was with. But now, I choose environments where I don't need to shrink, smile through discomfort, or hide parts of myself. And most of the time, that's right here at home. There's a deep, sacred kind of joy that lives in your own company when you stop seeing solitude as a punishment and start seeing it as a homecoming. 6, the people who really matter still make the effort. Now here's the beautiful twist to all of this. When I stopped visiting people, I was scared I'd lose everyone. I thought maybe I'd become invisible, or worse, forgotten. But do you know what actually happened? The real ones, the people who truly valued me, not just for what I gave or how convenient I was, but for who I am at my core, they stuck around. And more than that, they showed up. They called, not just when they needed something, but to ask how I was. They sent handwritten notes. They dropped off soup when I was sick. They respected my boundaries, didn't guilt-trip me for staying home, and made the effort to meet me where I was. They said, I miss you. Can I come visit? And when they came, they brought joy and light with them, not demands. And those are the relationships I've been nurturing ever since. They may be fewer in number, but they're deeper, stronger, and infinitely more fulfilling. Because as you get older, you start realizing that quantity of relationships doesn't matter. It's the quality that feeds your soul. So no, I haven't looked back. I haven't missed the forced visits, the half-hearted catch-ups, or the emotional labor. What I've gained is time, peace, authenticity, and a version of life that finally feels like it belongs to me.